You think your job is bad? Oh, you had a stressful Zoom meeting today? Your boss sent an email at 11 p.m.? That's cute. Because in ancient times, people had jobs like professional mourners, royal butt wipers, human toilet cleaners, armpit hair pluckers, and one guy whose entire career was literally tasting poison before the king ate dinner. Imagine dying because somebody else wanted soup. History class never tells you this part, but today, we're diving into the weirdest, darkest, and most unbelievably real jobs in ancient civilizations. And by the end of this video, you might actually thank capitalism for LinkedIn.
Across history, humans built pyramids, empires, philosophies, and civilizations so advanced they still confuse scientists today. But underneath all that greatness, someone still had to clean the toilets. Someone still had to carry dead bodies. Someone still had to shave rich people's eyebrows because apparently that was important. Every civilization had weird jobs, and somehow the richer the empire became, the stranger the jobs got. Because once humans solve survival, they immediately invent nonsense. Ancient kings had servants whose only responsibility was fanning them with feathers all day. That's not a job, that's an unpaid DLC character. So tonight, we travel across the ancient world, from Egypt to Rome, from the Aztecs to the British Empire, to discover the professions that history quietly buried out of embarrassment. And honestly, some of these jobs make modern office life look like a spa retreat. Let's go.
Ancient Egypt gave humanity pyramids, mummies, and one of the greatest civilizations ever built. But behind all that golden glory, there were the Pharaoh sandal bearers. Yes, a real job. Imagine being hired because another grown man didn't want to carry his own shoes. Your entire career was basically, "Excuse me, sir, your sandals." And because Egyptian royalty believed they were literal gods, servants had to follow them everywhere, fan them, perfume them, feed them grapes probably. Meanwhile, the worker's spine looked like uncooked spaghetti. And then there were professional mourners. Rich Egyptians would literally hire people to cry at funerals, fake crying, as a career. Imagine showing up to work like, "All right, everybody, today we're grieving a banker named Khafre. Tears by noon." And the craziest part? The louder you cried, the more respected the funeral became. Ancient Egypt basically invented emotional outsourcing. Also, let's not forget embalmers. These people removed organs from dead bodies for a living. Every day. No gloves, no sanitizer, no mental health awareness month. Just vibes and corpses. Honestly, ancient Egyptians were either geniuses or completely desensitized psychopaths. The Sumerians were one of the first civilizations in human history, which means they also invented one of humanity's oldest problems, paperwork. Sumerian scribes had brutal jobs. Imagine spending 14 hours carving tax records into stone tablets because somebody sold 3 goats and a suspicious onion. And if you made a typo, congratulations, now you're chiseling the entire thing again. No backspace key, no Control-Z, just suffering. But even stranger were temple beer brewers. In Sumerian culture, beer was safer than water. Children drank it, workers drank it, priests drank it. Honestly, civilization itself may have been invented because humans wanted alcohol more efficiently, and someone had to make all that beer. Huge vats, primitive tools, probably zero hygiene standards. Ancient beer workers were basically operating humanity's first frat house, and somehow it worked.
The Indus Valley civilization was shockingly advanced. They had drainage systems better than some modern cities. Meanwhile, today, one little rainstorm destroys entire traffic systems. But one mysterious job archaeologists suspect existed: sewer cleaners, because somebody had to maintain those underground drains. Imagine climbing into ancient sewage tunnels with no flashlight, no mask, and probably no hope. Every civilization reaches enlightenment right before somebody has to unclog something disgusting. Humanity never changes. And because the Indus people loved cleanliness, workers constantly maintained public baths and waste systems, meaning somewhere in history there was an exhausted man whose entire purpose was ancient plumbing maintenance, not exactly the glamorous side of civilization documentaries.
The Greeks gave us philosophy, democracy, theater, and men arguing dramatically in robes. But they also had scapegoats, literal human scapegoats. During disasters or plagues, certain unlucky people were blamed for society's problems and publicly humiliated or expelled. Imagine waking up and hearing, "Bad harvest this year. Dave, this feels like your fault somehow." Ancient Greece also employed professional athletes who competed naked, which means somebody had the incredibly unfortunate job of oiling them before competitions. Yes, human olive oil mechanics. And because Greek society loved public speaking, wealthy citizens hired memory trainers to help them memorize speeches. Basically, ancient motivational coaches, except instead of podcasts and cold plunges, it was sandals and existential philosophy.
Ancient China had imperial courts so massive and dramatic they make modern corporations look emotionally stable. One bizarre job? Royal food tasters. Their role was simple: eat the emperor's food first and pray, because poisoning emperors was surprisingly common. Imagine your boss handing you soup and your first thought is, well, this might kill me. Performance reviews must have been terrifying. Employee shows great loyalty and only died twice this quarter. Then there were court eunuchs, men who were castrated so they could safely serve inside royal palaces. And yes, it was exactly as horrifying as it sounds. Thousands competed for these positions because palace jobs meant wealth and influence. Imagine sacrificing that for better networking opportunities. LinkedIn has never demanded this much commitment. And somehow, many eunuchs became extremely powerful political figures. History is weird. Very weird.
The Maya were brilliant astronomers and mathematicians, but they also played a ritual ball game where losing could sometimes end very badly. And by badly, we mean human sacrifice. Imagine training your whole life for a sporting event and realizing the retirement plan is death. Ancient sports had very high stakes. The Maya also employed bloodletters for religious rituals. Royal families literally pierced themselves to communicate with gods. Someone had to prepare the tools and oversee the ceremonies. Human spirituality has always included at least one guy thinking, you know what this ritual needs? More bleeding.
Ah, yes, Rome. The civilization that conquered half the known world, but still made people clean public toilets with shared sponges. The Romans had thousands of slaves doing every imaginable task, but one strangest job was the vomitorium attendant. Contrary to popular myth, vomitoriums weren't specifically rooms for vomiting, but Romans did throw up during giant feasts so they could continue eating. Humanity reached peak greed very early, and servants had to clean it all. Imagine your career being elite vomit management. Rome also had urine collectors, because urine contained ammonia and was used for cleaning clothes and tanning leather. People literally collected pee from public pots. The emperor even taxed urine. There's a famous story where Emperor Vespasian defended the urine tax by saying, "Money does not stink." Sir, respectfully, it absolutely does. And then there were gladiator attendants. Imagine preparing sweaty, terrified men for combat against lions because rich citizens needed entertainment. Ancient Rome was basically reality television with more stabbing.
During the Islamic Golden Age, cities like Baghdad became centers of science, medicine, and knowledge. But even advanced civilizations had strange jobs. One surprisingly respected profession was the public bath attendant. Bathhouses were social hubs. People relaxed there, discussed politics, did business, which means attendants spent all day dealing with steam, towels, and humanity at its sweatiest. Basically, ancient gym locker room management. Then there were manuscript copyists. Before printing presses, books were copied entirely by hand. One mistake could ruin months of work. Imagine spending half a year writing a manuscript, then sneezing at the wrong moment. Human civilization was one accidental ink spill away from disaster. The Mongols conquered enormous territories with terrifying speed, but life inside Mongol camps required unusual jobs too. One important role was horse blood collectors. Yes, Mongol warriors sometimes drank small amounts of horse blood during long campaigns for survival. Imagine explaining your workday to someone. So, what do? Oh, I lightly stab horses for military snacks. The Mongols also relied heavily on messenger riders. These men crossed insane distances through brutal conditions carrying military information. No GPS, no roads, just vibes, horses, and possible death around every corner. Basically, ancient Amazon delivery drivers.
The Aztecs somehow made everything intense. War? Intense. Religion? Intense. Architecture? Intense. And then there were the Aztec priests. Aztec priests performed massive sacrificial ceremonies meant to keep the universe functioning. That was the belief. Imagine the workplace stress. If we mess this up, the sun might explode. No pressure. And because ceremonial cleaning was so frequent, specialized workers handled ceremonial cleaning afterward, which is probably not the glamorous side of history tourism brochures. Honestly, ancient civilizations were held together by underpaid workers cleaning up after rich, powerful people.
The Ottoman Empire perfected palace politics, which also meant they perfected bizarre palace jobs. One role involved guarding the royal harem, and because rulers trusted eunuchs for this job, yes, we're back to that horrifying career path again. History really reused content. The Ottomans also had coffee fortune readers. Coffee became wildly popular, and people literally read patterns in coffee grounds to predict the future. Imagine paying someone to stare at mud residue and say, "I sense emotional growth." That industry still exists somehow. The Persian Empire was elegant, sophisticated, and incredibly organized, but they also had royal parasol bearers. Your full-time responsibility? Following the king around holding a giant umbrella. That's it. No promotions, no career growth, just portable shade. And because Persian kings lived in extreme luxury, servants also worked as perfume mixers. These workers spent their lives blending exotic scents for royalty. Imagine risking your life on desert trade routes so a king could smell like cinnamon.
Now we enter medieval Europe, a place where life expectancy was low and the vibes were somehow lower. One of the worst jobs? The gong farmer, which sounds adorable. It was not adorable. Gong farmers cleaned human waste from cesspits, by hand, at night. And because cities smelled horrific, another job emerged, the plague doctor. Now, yes, they were medical professionals, but those bird masks filled with flowers looked less like doctors and more like cursed Pokemon. Nobody actually knew how diseases worked, so medieval medicine was basically, maybe if I wear garlic on my face, God will stop the rats. Science was having a rough time.
Then came the British Empire, masters of global trade, industrial power, and deeply cursed jobs. Victorian London had pure finders, children who searched dog poop for scraps used in leather tanning. Yes, that was employment. Others worked as rat catchers, hunting massive infestations in filthy city streets. Entire careers built around fighting oversized sewer demons. Industrial society looked advanced, on paper, but half the population was still battling garbage and disease like NPCs in a survival game. And chimney sweeps? Tiny children climbed inside narrow chimneys covered in soot. Human history is basically, we discovered progress. Unfortunately, children will suffer first.
So, the next time you hate your job, just remember, at least you're probably not carrying a king's sandals, or cleaning medieval sewage pits, or professionally fake crying at funerals. Human civilization has always depended on weird jobs. Behind every empire, every pyramid, every glorious king, there was always some exhausted worker thinking, this is absolutely not worth the pay. And maybe that's the funniest part of history. We imagine the ancient world as grand and noble, but most people were just trying to survive bizarre systems created by powerful people with too much time and authority. So maybe humanity hasn't changed that much after all. We just replaced plague pits with spreadsheets. Anyway, if this video made you grateful for your career choices, hit like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments which ancient job was the absolute worst. And remember, maybe we've evolved, or maybe we just hide the weirdness better now.